a lot of people are talking about making a difference in the world. And I mean, some of my clients and people I talk to saying, I'd really like to make a difference in the world. And again, I think we're going into an area where, to enable us to have the conversation, we need to be general to a large degree, but maybe we'll become more specific. But who do you think are the people who are making a difference in the world?
That's a good question. It's often very easy to say it's the big guys trying to do big welfare projects, or some politician trying to bring peace. And, good on them, more power to their elbows, we'd say in Ireland.
Yeah.
But I think that it's actually, it's this little kind of acts where, as I say, bhakti breaks through. I think that's what makes more difference. When people experience the kindness of strangers, even when their family, they experience the love, even within that circumstances. And whenever we receive true acts of kind of compassion, friendship, and something from the heart, I think that influences us much more than anything else, and probably changes our world for the better, more than the political situation or anything else. Not to say that bigger projects and getting on with welfare, that also is an act of bhakti, or at least it should be an act of bhakti, or at least it will have its biggest effect when it is an act of devotion. Similarly, if the politicians were actually trying to bring peace by inspiring, heartfelt love, I think that would be really wonderful.
Yes.
But too often their actions are just,
by their nature, they can't do it.
It's some kind of commercial, territorial.
Politics is by its nature confrontational.
Yeah.
And as long as you have more than one party, it's a bit like supporting a football team. You're either part of the group or you're not. And if you're not part of the group, in fact, the conflict lies at the point where you're in that group or you're not in that group, or if you see what I'm saying. So, so long as there is Conservative, Labour and Liberal, or indeed Democratic, Republican, whatever, there's going to be conflict.
There will be.
There will be.
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, maybe in answer to your question, and I'm just throwing this out rhetorically, maybe it's not possible to have a politician, or have politics, if you like, displayed in such a way that, as you would say, you can have
politicians themselves,
a policy of love.
Well, politicians individually can often be very loving persons.
Well,
and, they can be motivated like that. The danger is that they are always representing something more than or other than themselves, and therefore have to represent the material interests.
Can they represent love?
Difficult, because generally they have to represent someone's interests, someone's ambition, someone's selfishness.
Who is this someone?
Well, it's the nation, the people who elected them, the coalition.
Well, we all know that they don't.
They do what they think it is representing. We look at the Middle East and we decide, which ones, where the oil kind of might be important, and how do we kind of make sure our interest in the air, blah blah blah. We're never really concerned.
You see, that's the thing about love, isn't it? The thing about love is that, for me, it transcends material interests.
Yes.
And you're talking effectively there, I think, about material interests, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, bringing those two together, how possible is that?
Well, that's why it's difficult for someone in a role to do it. Because the role means representing the interests.
Yeah.
Very rarely is a politician charged with just go down and give them our love. Maybe in some
Well, they haven't tried it yet.
very, I mean, you'd like to think that maybe in
Surprise
some
them all,
kind,
yeah.
well, maybe in some kind of disaster situations, the humanitarian need is so powerful that Britain just thinks, don't care where it is in the world, don't care what they do, whatever the situation or what we'll get, never mind, we just got to help. Go down there and just love them.
But that's interesting, isn't it? Think of the help, right? To what extent does that help take the form of material or practical, you might say, aid? I mean, as we're seeing now in Japan. And how much of it is love? And that love could be communicated in the form of prayer, let's say. And there's a lot going on at the internet, as you've probably seen at the moment.
Well, you can't use material
praying for
aid.
the people in Japan.
Well, you can't use material aid as...
Or is it we just do both?
Well, material aid can't replace giving love.
Yeah, well that's...
The trouble is we tend not to give anything unless
Okay.
unless we're forced to, and then we give something
Really?
to help people in need. We'll help people in need. But actually we should be helping people anyway. And we should be loving people anyway.
Right.
And then we shouldn't... The need
This is going back to your drowning man example.
Well, no, but
isn't it?
the need should... It shouldn't, we shouldn't need the need in order to kind of do something positive and nice for others.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But
But at the same time, if there is a need, then you deal with the need. But then you don't stop the love there,
Except need, again, language doesn't work, but need to me implies, again, a value judgment. What do we need here? Who needs? What needs? In a sense, the word need itself doesn't work, does it, in a love context? Because,
Well, yes. Because
do the Japanese need love at the moment? Well, yes, on one level they do, but
Certainly
is
do.
need the right word?
Well, I
Why
think...
can't we give them love, through every situation, in every circumstance? And, do we have to wait till a disaster
But then that's...
comes along,
but then the situation comes, well, what is one of the simplest ways to show love? And
go on.
there is a nice little book by Rupa Goswami called the Upadeshamrita, which says actually there's 6 ways you show love.
Go on.
One is you give gifts.
Okay.
Another is you receive gifts.
Okay.
That's a way of exchanging love.
Yeah.
Give food.
Mhm.
Share food.
Mhm.
And receive food. Another is you inquire confidentially. You ask things, and you share your mind.
Right.
And the other is you allow them to share their mind back to you,
Right.
and you do that in a loving spirit.
Right.
So those,
I'm pleased to say that I think I cover all 6 of those in my
well, that's nice.
current
But
relationship.
the point is, if someone comes and they are hungry, one of the ways I show love is to feed them, to share my food with them. Now, even if they're not hungry, I should share my food.
Yes.
And I should give them gifts, But if they're in need, then surely the impetus to give them gifts as a way of showing my love might be that just a little bit. But love isn't dependent on the need.
Yeah.
A need isn't...
So
fulfilling need isn't necessarily love. There are actually 2 different things
need
going on.
becomes a cultural thing, doesn't it, then? Because there are certain societies and certain parts of the world where the people will gladly, as you say, welcome you into their home. In fact, insist that you come into their home and eat with them, right?
Even though you
doesn't tend to happen too much in Kent, so far as I'm aware, but I may be wrong, or even in Wales, but you tell me differently. And so it becomes then a cultural thing, is that right?
Well, I think it is, and it's actually nice when hospitality is part of the culture. Then that tends to be a warmer, more accepting, more open, and often a happier and more loving culture.
Hospitality is subject to an invitation.
Well,
in the West, more likely, right?
Yes, but I mean, the other day, I went to Harry Banks's funeral, and one of the things that they said about him, there was 800 people at the crematorium.
Wow.
Like unheard of down there in Hendon. The ceremony took 3 hours for everyone to come round and pay their respects. And the reason there were so many people there is that they were all individuals who had been touched by his hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
This was a guy who just somehow or other just spent hour after day, every moment just being hospitable. He ran an opticians. He was always looking after people and giving them kind of free prescriptions and doing extra things. He'd just done a trip around India with his brother, and everywhere they went, they did free kind of eye tests for all these kids and things. And, and then back in Britain, all these, he's always in, you go to him for an eye test, and he'd give you the eye test, and then he'd come back and have lunch with him at the house. It was, a crazy way to run his business.
Fantastic.
And even then, when he earned money in his business, he was always spending it, helping others. If anyone came to him and just asked him, he gave them, Someone, they said even...
With no motive other than to give.
Yeah, and sometimes people, came to him and asked him for a loan. He'd say, okay, here's £500, if that's what you needed. And his friend said, no chance they're going to pay you back. That's not the issue. They've got the need, Well, it's and he just had this sort of incredible, hospitable kind of giving. And that's why there was 800 people there wanting to, feeling actually lost.
How close to Bhakti is that then? That comes pretty close, doesn't it?
It must be, it's closer to anything than I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is when I was there, I've known this guy for 30 years.
Yeah.
He's a close friend. As you know, he's one of our shareholders here.
Yeah.
And anytime I had any kind of dealings with him, it was like he had all the time in the world.
Yeah. And
I walked away from that funeral feeling ashamed of myself. That I would often call on him and say, hey, can I come to your home and, I'm passing by, can I and it would like he had all the time in the world. And somehow or other he was doing this for everybody, but each one of us felt that there was no limit to the time he had available to us.